For our last chapter in zoology, we are going to be discussing mammals. We're going to go through all of the characteristics of mammals, some of their evolution, how they evolved, and how they're classified today. So there are several characteristics that scientists look at when they're determining what makes a mammal a mammal. One of the biggest ones is going to be endothermy. This is the fact that mammals can regulate their body heat internally through metabolism and externally through insulation. So similar to birds in the way that mammals keep their body heat elevated by reactions on the inside, and also they keep their body insulated with hair. So instead of having feathers like birds do, we have hair that helps insulate our body against heat loss. So just a couple examples here. Oftentimes you might not think about a whale first off when you think of mammals, but remember, a whale is one of the largest mammals we have on Earth. It does have some hair on it, not as easily visible as most other mammals, but they also have fat and things to help insulate their body. The other picture there, of course, a dog. Easy to see the hair on him to help keep him insulated and warm. So we're going to see there's lots of diversity with mammals. Mammals are going to have a completely divided four-chambered heart, whose two ventricles are going to be completely separated by a muscular wall. The reason this is important is that it helps keep our oxygenated and deoxygenated blood separate from each other so that those different bloods can be pumped either throughout the body or back to the heart without mixing up those blood types without, losing oxygen. It's very efficient, which is going to be something that's really important for mammals to have because most mammals are going to be moving a lot throughout their day. They need to get the blood pumping throughout their body in order to do that. All mammals are going to produce some type of milk, and usually the females in the population will produce milk to feed the offspring. So we see some examples here with a cow. Of course, we actually drink cow's milk. Sometimes it's a little weird when you think about it. We're drinking the milk of another mammal, but there's lots of nutrients in that. Um, and the other picture there, of course, some of the primates, um, they provide milk to their young as well. Mammals have a single lower jaw bone. So the jaw bone is made up of just one single bone. This is different than like reptiles, for example. Reptiles usually have several bones that make up their jaws. Whenever we find fossils for mammals, usually the first thing scientists look for to figure out if it's a mammal is what does its jawbone look like. If it has one single jawbone, then there's a good chance it could be a mammal. So we see some pictures of different jawbones here, even a large jawbone of a whale being shown uh, in front of that house. Mammals are also going to have specialized teeth. These are going to be teeth that are modified for different functions. Usually the front teeth are for kind of biting and tearing flesh, especially on mammals like our dog here, the canine. But some mammals are going to have mostly ground down teeth because they're going to be eating mostly vegetation. Take humans, for example, a picture of our mouth all the way over to the right there. We have differences in our teeth. Our front teeth and our incisors are going to be a little bit more for biting and tearing into something. Your teeth on the side and towards the back, they're more for grinding and mashing up anything else that you're chewing up. So we have different teeth, in our mouth. That's going to be different than some other organisms. Reptiles, for example, all of their teeth are pretty much the same. They're all pretty much sharp throughout their mouth. So we have specialized teeth because we eat a number of different things. So when we talk about mammal evolution, some of the earliest ancestors to mammals existed about 300 million years ago. So kind of right alongside the dinosaurs, some of our earliest mammal ancestors existed. Now, the earliest mammal ancestors, like the synapsids, they didn't look much like mammals, but they did have some similarities to us in their jaws and in the way that their teeth started to form and the way that their limbs started to be located directly underneath their body. So synapsids looks like they gave rise to mammals and their extinct relatives. A little bit later, after the synapsids, the therapsids, those are going to be some of the most abundant terrestrial vertebrates about 250 million years ago. And they also look like they gave rise to mammals as well. We have some pictures of these very early mammal ancestors shown here. I know they don't look very much like mammals. They look more like the reptiles, right? And this is actually what most life on Earth looked like 300 million, 200 million years ago. Most life on land, things walking on land look like this. They look similar to dinosaurs because of the way that the Earth was back then. The climate was very, very dry, so things that had these particular features did well. However, changes started to take place. We started to get smaller ancestors to mammals, things that start to represent more things like little small mice and examples like that. And we'll be taking a look at some of those in a little bit. Early mammals, like I said, they were about the size of mice, and they had very, very large eyes, which indicates that they were nocturnal or that they were active at night. So once we get to some of the smaller mammal ancestors, remember, this is a time where dinosaurs were still very, very, very dominant. They were the most dominant life form on Earth. They kind of ruled the earth, basically. So mammals, the small ancestors to mammals and the first small mammals that are showing up, they mostly had to stay underground, and a lot of them came out only at night when the dinosaurs were not as active, so that maybe they're not going to get eaten up by those dinosaurs. There will be more food and things left for them at night. So it looks like our early mammals, they were small, kind of like mice, and they came out really only at night for the most part. So mammals did exist alongside the dinosaurs, but those early mammals were really small, and like we said, they came out only at night. The dinosaurs had to go away. They had to go extinct before mammals could really start to take over the earth like they do today. We have a large diversity of mammals that live virtually on every continent and even in the oceans. Um, we had the extinction of the dinosaurs about 65 million years ago. Asteroid impact, ravaged the climate and wiped out the vegetation. Those small mammals, though, some of them were able to survive because they didn't need a lot of food. A lot of them lived underground, came out only at night. So these were actually okay conditions for a lot of those little mammals. And then, given enough time, millions of years, those mammals have diversified and given us all the different types we have today. There are three big categories of mammals today based off of how they give birth. The first category is actually kind of small. The monotremes, they give oviparous birth. That means they actually lay eggs. So they don't really give birth at all. They lay eggs. So the big example of this is, of course, the platypus. Most mammals are actually going to give live birth. Now, marsupials, they give viviparous birth. They give birth to live young, but they develop inside of a pouch. So they have the little, let's say the little kangaroo, the little kangaroo embryo develops inside of the kangaroo, but then as it starts to form into a little baby kangaroo, like a couple inches in length, it moves outside of the mother's body, but still inside the mother's pouch. there it attaches on and gets milk and grows up there. Placental mammals, they're going to be the most common. They give viviparous birth as well, but in this case, the fetus develops pretty much fully within the mother's reproductive system for a long time. For example, in humans, this happens for about 9 months before the baby is born, and lots of placental mammals keep their babies inside of them for long periods of time before they are born. So those are the three different types of mammals based off of how they give birth. Mammals are also going to have a diaphragm. This is a sheet of muscle at the bottom of the rib cage of animals. So that's going to be another structure that they have. Helps to protect their internal organs, helps to give um, kind of support to the rib cage as well. So the diaphragm is going to be something that we see show up in mammals. Mammals have a lot of variation in the size and shape of their teeth, and this reflects differences in diet. For example, something like a bear or a large carnivore, they're going to have large teeth that are sharp for tearing into flesh. Something like a deer, they're going to have mostly flatter teeth, round teeth, for mashing up the types of vegetation that they're going to be eating. So there's lots of variations amongst the teeth of mammals. Mammals have relatively short, simple digestive systems that, for the most part, are not going to digest cellulose, which is the carbohydrate found in things like grasses. Now, we take us, for example, take a dog, for example, they're not going to be able to adequately break down something like grass. A cow, though, they have actually a different stomach. They have a stomach with like 4 chambers. Uh, they have a part called a rumen, which they're going to have lots of bacteria in there to help them break down the grass that they're going to be eating. So some mammals are going to be able to eat things like grass, and those mammals include things like cows, deer, zebras. That's because their stomach's going to be set up a little bit differently. But for the most part, mammals are not going to do well at digesting grass. They'll be doing better at digesting other types of vegetation like fruits and vegetables. And then also, of course, many of the mammals are going to be carnivores, so they'll be able to digest meat. So monotremes, like I said, there's only a couple examples of these guys today. They typically lay 1 or 2 large eggs that are encased in a thin, leathery shell, and then they incubate them. They lay on them sort of like birds do to keep them warm until they hatch. Our examples of these include the duck-bill platypus, shown in the picture on the left. Um, when this was first discovered, some scientists thought that the person who discovered the platypus, the specimen, was making it up because the animal, in their opinion, looks so ridiculous. It looks like a duck with like an otter body, but it's not. The platypus is actually a real living mammal, and they're actually maybe one of the earliest types of mammals because they still lay eggs. They still have that ability to lay eggs. The echidna on the right, it also lays eggs. It looks sort of like a small little mouse mixed with maybe like a porcupine, but they lay eggs as well. They don't have that duck bill like the platypus does, but they both lay eggs. So those are the monotremes. In marsupials, the embryos develop for just a short period of time within the mother's uterus, and then they emerge from the uterus and then crawl into the mother's pouch, which is a skin-lined pocket on her abdomen. So we have examples of these that include the kangaroo, the possum that's actually in our area is an example of a marsupial. So pretty cool that we actually have a marsupial in our area. It keeps those little baby possums in their pouch for a while they're growing. All the way over to the right side of the slide, That little red organism there is actually a small little kangaroo that is attached to the mother's nipple inside of the pouch. It's getting milk. So you can see just how small these little guys are when they emerge from the mother's uterus. They stay in that pouch for a long period of time, getting nutrients and developing. So pretty cool way of life for these guys. And then our last group here, based off of how they give birth, are the placental mammals. These are going to be mammals whose offspring remains inside of the mother's uterus until development is complete. So take a human for example. They carry the embryo and the fetus inside of the mother for up to 9 months. In a placental mammal, there's going to be a placenta. The function of a placenta in certain mammals is to carry nutrition to and remove waste from the embryo during development. So we can see the placenta here in the diagram shown up above the baby inside of the mother's uterus. The umbilical cord is attached to that. So the baby's going to be getting some nutrients from the mom, and then also going to be giving away some of the waste that baby's producing on the inside. So that's going to be characteristics of the placental mammals. One of the things that makes mammals special, no matter what type they are, is that the babies, are going to depend on parental care for a pretty long period of time. They'll depend on the parent for food. They'll depend on the parent for learning different behaviors. Simple as maybe elephants learning like how to find water with their parents. And they'll also depend on the parents and parental care for protection, for protecting the babies from predators. And if we think about this, humans are the same, right? We depend on our parents and guardians for food when we grow up. We depend on them for learning. Of course, you're in school, so you depend on not only your parents and family for learning, but you depend on your teachers for learning too. And then for protection as well. Your parental care protects you during your life as you're growing up. So we share those things in common with all other mammals too.